Greetings, gamers. Michael Bolton here. Last week's episode seemed to have kicked off a little bit. I talked about why the same players win, and the response was, well, it's because they have a lot of practice and they're skillful. Well, Yabu sucks. I think we all knew that in the first place. I think what I was trying to say is when it gets to fine margins at the top of the heap, there are little things that make a difference, and you've got to assume an equal level of skill. If you assume an equal level of skill, then army build, luck and risk mitigation come into play, and that is something else, and that comes with experience and practice. So yeah, I get it. I hear what everybody was saying. It's about skill and practice and repetition. I get that. It's just interesting to hear people like myself who don't get a lot of practice. I don't practice. I was listening to an excellent podcast by Vic Vijay and David Gaylard called the 40K Fireside. If you get a chance, look it up on YouTube or wherever else, what your normal platform is. Cracking, really good competitive podcast. Those guys Vic came back to me immediately and said it's about skill and repetitions. Absolutely agree with him. I can't argue with that. But when you get to an equal level of skill at the top, something happens. Similarly, I'm not entirely sure what happens below that, because for me, I've never played on Tabletop Simulator. This is something apparently that all the top players practice on, so they get lots of repetitions from their comfort of their armchair. I've got a 7-year-old Chromebook. I do everything off. It can't run Steam, and there's no way it's going to run Tabletop Simulator. I've never used it. I get to play once a week in a casual setting, and then perhaps once a month at a tournament. So if you're putting me up against someone who plays several times a week, I have Buckley's chance because I just don't have the reps in it. So I suspect there's a lot of players that go to tournaments, and something we'd need to look at in the future is, why do people continue to go to tournaments if they know that they're going to have no chance of winning? Do they go for fun? Do they go for social occasions? I have kidded myself for years that I'm going to this event because it's a social. I don't care if I win. Of course I care if I win. It's all about winning. And after 20 odd years of not winning, it's beginning to wear a little thin. And the excuse that I go to have a good time with my chums is also wearing thin, because although I do have a good time with my chums, I could do that without the stress and the cost of going to a tournament. So there are issues there that we need to discuss in a future podcast. But today's podcast, I'm very pleased to have a 4-way chat between myself, Josh Holder, Matt Jarvis and Steve Pearce. We're all going to Cross Swords, a 50 or 60 player event down in Plymouth, which is a hell of a drive for me. It's about 4.5 hours to get there. And that will be the weekend after next. So that will be fun. We're going to have a chat about which armies we're taking, why we're taking them, and then have a little bit of a cross swords. Don't cross the beams. A cross sword competition and conversation, about why we're taking them and how we hope to do. I must apologize. The sound quality on this isn't as good as I'd like. When I was talking to at least a couple of the fellas down south, apparently down south, they don't really know how to work the internet. And a couple of them sound like they might be shouting in a gale into a cardboard box, which is attached to a string, which ends up on a paper cup next to your ear. So it might be a little bit dodgy. But bear with, there's some interesting things to say. Matt, particularly, a very successful Eldari player. Josh, very successful Knight player. Steve, all got some things to say. And then there's me. I might be having something to say as well. So let's listen to see what they all have to say, and then we'll round it out at the end when I come back. As I said earlier on, I'm here with Josh, Matt and Steve all black crows. One of them used to be a Cold Steel mercenary, but he's thrown off the mantle and joined the dark side. And we're all going to the Cross Swords event in Plymouth in a couple of weeks' time. I'm going to tell you what's in my list. I'm going to tell you why I'm taking it. Then the guys can ask me a couple of questions, and then we'll move on to Steve's list. So I'm taking Necrons, mainly because the only option is going to be Chaos Space Marines. And I kind of like Chaos Space Marines, but I haven't got the models to make it quite how I want it. So Necrons, what do I like about them? They're pretty resilient, but a lot of armies have teched into killing warrior blobs now. So here's the deal. If an army can kill 20 warriors, it's going to beat me. If it can't kill 20 warriors, I'm going to win. And it's as binary as that. So I thought about what armies are likely to be at the event. And I don't know the meta down in the south of England, but if it's anything like the competitive ones I go to, then you're going to be talking about Aldari and Chaos Space Marines in the top. Those are going to be the winning armies. The choice is build an army that can beat both of those. Well, I can't with Necrons. Ironically, 20 warrior blobs are really hard for Aldari to kill. So if I can get on an objective, it's not easy for them to shift me. And you can talk to me about that in a minute, Matt, but statistically it's really tough for them to get rid of them. Having said that, Chaos Space Marines and probably Marines with the new detachments and probably Knights will be able to wreck my warriors if I put them on objectives. So I've decided that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take my Necrons with 10 Lich Guard, the Silent King, because the Silent King's got a little bit of punch, and the thing that Necrons don't do is punch hard. And that's a problem, because if any army with any resilient troops manages to get onto an objective, I can't get them off, because Necrons haven't got enough oomph to do it. So it's really, really difficult. So I'm going to take a Silent King for some combat threat. I'm going to take some Lich Guard for some resilience. I'm going to take 6 Locust Destroyers for some shooty goodness. They're only strength 5, but I can get them to reroll all their wounds. And they're hitting on 2s, and if they're anywhere near the Silent King, they'll be re-rolling 1s as well, which is quite nice. I've got some mission scoring units. I've got a tech piece in a Tomb Sentinel, which is pretty crap most of the time. But if I run into any psychic armies...
Is that the Forge World one?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a beautiful model as well.
It's the little... It looks like a giant millipede, fellas. It's that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
nice.
good. It's good against psychic. It gives everybody in a 6-inch bubble a 4-up, feel no pain against psychic attacks. And
Okay.
I suffered against Grey Knights the last time I played them. So with what's it, Vortex of Doom, I think it was. They were
that thing.
Yeah, throwing it about all over the place. So that's basically my list. It's an all-comers list. I know if I fight your Aldari, for instance, Matt, I'm going to lose. In fact, I'm not even going to play because it's pointless. I fought one at Battlefield Birmingham, and I fought one at the London GT, almost identical to yours, with the two night. They're called Night Spinners, are they?
Again, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and
yes,
and the Incarn, and the combo will kill something. The Incarn will drop in and then wreck your back line. And then, have you got the Wraith Guard as well wandering around?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Guy. I don't want to reveal too many secrets because my section's a little while away.
Well, don't worry. You know what I mean.
The
list I'm taking I'm taking it as an all-comers list. I reckon it can give most people a good game, but I know for a fact I can't do anything about Aldari. I really can't do anything about it. No. So that's the problem. Other than that, if I don't fight Aldari, that'll be good. What do you think about the meta down there? Do you think there's going to be lots of Aldari, or do you think it's a little bit less competitive, or what? What do you think, Matt? What do you think?
Well, I am a Crosswords ex-Crosswords member as well, so I play at the Crosswords Club. And was part of the team, so know it pretty well.
To be fair, he plays in a Black Crow t-shirt when he goes to Crosswords.
Yeah, and get shouted at a lot. I mean, I'm just looking at who's going. The meta is relatively typical for the UK. It's not dissimilar to whatever you're going to see. You're going to see probably 2 to 3 Eldari players, one of them being myself, which is probably a good thing because at the moment I'm useless. But never mind. But it's pretty typical. You're going to have a lot of Space Marines. You're going to have a lot of you're going to have a bit of chaos around. And there's a couple of really good like faction players as well. So I think it'd be a fairly decent spread looking at knowing what I think people are going to take. The train's going to be pretty solid. And yeah, so I think overall the meta wise, I don't think you've got anything to be surprised with.
No, I agree with Matt.
No, yeah, I agree. It's all glass hammer terrain as well, so we all know what to expect as well. I mean, the maps are on their website, so
and there's some good players there, and as Matt said, George is really good. He's a great Chikari player. That's all he's ever played. He does get a bit salty when you kick his ass, but you know, such is life.
I believe he's running Yanari at this point.
So potentially he's running. I've seen the Incarn on his painting desk, from what I gather. But from what I gather, it's also a very bike-heavy list. And having been trying bikes a lot lately, they are a bit unwieldy, especially in the bigger bricks. Like the smaller bricks don't do enough damage, but the bigger bricks just don't hit hard enough. I know Michael's talking about his Necrons, and my other faction is Necrons. And I was testing a big 9-man Wind Rider unit specifically to deal with Necrons. And it actually deals with warriors really well, but the problem is if it tries to turn a corner, it gets stuck. Yeah. So that's a problem. So yeah, I think it's pretty standard. I don't think you're going to get any shocks down there, Michael. To be honest.
That's great. I wish Josh would stop buggering about with whatever he's doing with his microphone.
I'm getting very excited.
Okay. Well, yeah, me too. Okay. So what have I got here? So my question to myself when I was putting my list together is, do I just ignore Eldari and know I'm going to get beaten and hope I don't play them? Because I don't care. If I win 3 games out of 5, I'm going to be ecstatic. So if I meet them in the 4th game or the 5th game, do I care? Not in the slightest. I will just shake their hand and go for a beer. That would suit me down to the ground. So that's my plan. My plan is to avoid fighting Eldari till games 4 or 5 and then win the first 3, and I'll be happy as Larry.
Yeah, sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah.
I think so. I think I can do it as long as I can get onto some objectives and don't chicken out. Because I fought some Marines recently and I hid my Silent King, and he survived to the end of the game, but I didn't score enough points. So I think actually putting him up front and saying, all right, deal with this guy, can actually help me out, because it gives me some close combat threat, which is because he's pretty good in close combat. What's he get?
Yeah, as long as you don't run him around a building in front of 6 eradicators like you did against me.
Yeah, no, true.
Yeah. I would say one thing to look out for coming down to our meta at the moment. There's a couple of Space Marine players that I know. I'm going to give insight, so sorry, people. They are running a Storm Raven with eradicators in.
Yeah. And
that's annoying because I've played it a couple of times recently, and it's killed my Night Spinners, and it's like, okay, cool, that's the end of my game then. So there is that trap of, you've got a big model. There are a couple of super fast, deadly threats to deal with those models now, which is slightly worrying. But
that's a good point.
Yeah, even with some combat characters, I don't want to run into the Silent King.
No, I have to say that you're absolutely right. But I fight Alex, and he uses Deathwing. Is it Deathwing?
No, Deathwatch.
Deathwatch. So he has a similar arrangement where all his eradicators are bouncing around the table and just where you need them at any particular moment. So I know that it's hideous.
And then all of the aggressors, because he's filthy like that.
He's got aggressors. He's got a big kill team with all the different weapons in it.
It's not really a Deathwatch army, though, is it?
No, it's a Marine army, but using the black. What's it? The Black Spear detachment. So he gets to bounce 3 units around every turn with all the different enhancements and things. And I think it's a pretty good list. But, hey. Anyway, so that's hang on.
It's not true Death Watch, but it works really well.
It does.
In the way he's built it. Yeah.
It does. And he's had
a
lot
of reps.
We're
still going to out him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Steve, tell us what list you're taking, what you thought about the meta, and what you're worried about.
Well, I've completely ignored the meta. I've gone for a Chaos Lord, 3 Masters of Possession, 30 Chosen, 10 Possessed, Forge Fiend, 2 Venom Crawlers, some Cultists, a couple of Spawn, and that's about it. So basically I will be advancing and charging every unit, because the Chosen get it by their ability, and I have 1 CP no matter what to burn it onto the Possessed with their Master of Possession to equally advance and charge. So my hope is that I'll be in turn 1 and kill the crap out of people basically. And if they're dead, then they can't actually score anything, and I should be rushing around standing on objectives and whatever. It's not the most balanced list by any stretch, but it sort of plays to the way I want it to do. It's like my World Eaters, but it's a bit different.
It definitely plays into Steve's play style.
Yeah. Yeah. Charge and don't give a fuck, basically. But it as long as it gets in, then I can start burning CPs on, undivided stuff, rerolling all hits and wounds and other bits and pieces. So I should be killing units and then just keep going. Yeah. So that's the way I've planned it, really, because Crossroads is a great event. There's a load of balanced players. There's a lot of nice guys there. And I not that I particularly want to be that guy, but equally, if I can get into them in turn 1 and wrap them up really quickly, then it's time for the bar. Yay! So we'll win.
Okay, no, that sounds like as good a reason as any, to be honest. But okay, so what's do you think that's going to deal with? Well, I think if you get into Aldari, that's good, but you haven't got any transports, have you? Are they all
I've dropped my rhinos, so I'm all on foot. So if I go second and I'm fighting Matt, for instance, then he's going to be doing the night spinners on me and stopping me moving, stopping me advancing or whatever. But equally, if I go first, then I'm going to be advancing, charging, and I'm going to roll that 11-inch charge, Matt, because I've done it before.
Yeah, I know you've done it to me before. And it was on film.
It was on film, yeah.
We have it all
you still beat the crap out of me, but even so, the 11-inch charge was just awesome getting in there.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Hey, the Avatar died, that's all we care about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he got battered by Possessed, so...
So why did you go with this? Just because you enjoy the idea, or do you think this actually has a chance of winning anything?
I
don't mean that in a funny way.
I don't want to blow trumpets or anything else, but I think if I go first, and going back to some of our previous chats on the Stoic Gamer, that actually, if my opponent doesn't say, so who can advance and charge and what can you do, I'll be into him turn 1. And I've got to the point where I'm not going to give away all my trades and my secrets and whatever. But actually, if somebody doesn't ask me, I'm not going to tell them. Because they're not telling me everything they can do.
No.
So suddenly it's like, well, actually, I always wanted to be the nice guy and whatever, and I keep getting my face pushed in. So actually, this time, if you don't ask me, can you advance and charge in anything with anything? Well, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, but any sensible player is going to be. That's going to be. There are only about 3 questions I ask a player when I've seen.
I know, and I do the same as you.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to say, have you got anything that can advance and charge? You're going to say, have you got anything that can infiltrate? You're going to say what you're going to deep strike, what's going to scout, and that's before you even start doing anything. Surely, what do you think, Josh? Are those the kind of things you'd be asking everybody?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think, and I'm going to call this out now, Steve. You're on for a 3-2 that weekend. It's a solid list. It punches like a train, and like you say, I think it will really catch people out that aren't prepared for it. And yeah, you're both right. I mean, we all ask the similar questions at the start of the game. Like, my normal ones will be, what have you got in deep strike? Like, do I need to be screening out my backfield? That will help me figure out if you're taking fixed or secondaries. Can you advance and charge? I mean, normally with gun lines, you can figure it out. Like, if you've got a heavy gun line, then obviously I know that I need to hide more. But if you've got a combat orientated army, then actually I can sit myself on the front line and I just need to screen you out. So, yeah, those are the normal sort of questions I would go for.
What about you, Matt?
I mean, I think, yeah, the normal questions are pretty, bog standard now. We've all covered them. I think, unfortunately, now with 10th edition, there's a couple of extra questions you've got to start asking. So, like, can you arrive within 3 inches when you deep strike? Have you got anything that moves when you shoot me? Or, like, have you got anything that teleports out of the way when I move nearby, Grey Knights?
Yeah.
Or, like, like, don't get me started. The last tournament I did, I was absolutely smashing the Grey Knight army, and then he brought in the Paladins, and they just literally turned the game, and I hate them.
You're not bitter then, mate.
I'm so bitter because they literally ruined my game. It was annoying. And and also, no, it wasn't. It was against Ian Jewell, who's a lovely guy, and there's nothing against him. But also, he had Drago with those Paladins, and Drago doesn't like demons. And guess what's got the demon? Guess what's got the demon keyword in the Eldar army? Then both of them. Yeah. So yeah, great. But yeah, so I think there's a few things you've got.
We don't care, Matt. Sorry.
No, sorry. I know. Nobody feels sorry for it. It's fine.
There's my tiny violin.
Yeah, I'm that guy that ran the 9 flyer lists in 8th edition, so I don't even care. So yeah, I think there's a few little things, like things like CP manipulation and things like that. Keeping an eye for those little tricks. I tend to ask people what's their army's thing. What's your thing? Like, what's that one trick that you do that no other army does that I need to know about? So if it's like, okay, if it's like Necrons, like, okay, everything gets back up. Great. Okay. How does it work?
Okay, Matt,
I have a counter argument to that, Matt. I mean, does that come down to when you're going to this, for example, we're going to the GT.
Yep.
Now, those little nuances about an army. So you take, say, the top 5 armies at the moment. So you take your Eldar and your Chaos Space Marines, and those sort of armies. Those little tiny nuances are almost like a secret, but they're all publicly available now. Like, they're all in indexes.
Yeah.
They're all viewable.
They're not all now, though, are they? Not all.
No, I appreciate that Space Marines and Tyranids aren't. But it's like, why, if you're going to a GT, aren't you expected to almost know that? Like, if you want to be a top player that's podiuming,
absolutely,
you should surely be aware of knowing that information.
Hang on. Whoa. We're getting off track here. You're absolutely right, Josh. That's a whole different podcast to talk about with whether we should know. There was a time, and Steve will remember this, when you could basically know the rules to all 9 or 10 factions in the game. Easy. Now, I don't think you could be expected to, and there's a certain player contract where you agree that you're not going to be a dick, and you're going to have a game out of it rather than. So let's move on from that.
Oh, sorry, I might have played into being a dick then.
No, not why.
No, not at all.
Saying give away what they ask, but don't give any more.
Yeah. If people are asking, that's fine. You should be, and you should be challenging. And the problem there, of course, is if you're going to go down this route, is you're going to have a longer game because you're going to be doing what I do and say, hang on a minute, just explain that to me, because there are things that I find out by doing that that are used sometimes to my detriment. As I said on a message I sent to the Cold Steel Mercs earlier on today, I only found out today that a unit with a leader shares the keywords from the leader. So I've been putting my Technomancer with a Canoptic Cloak, which has got the fly keyword, with a unit of Lich Guard. Guess what that does? That gives your Lich Guard the fly keyword, even though they can't fly, which means that someone's shooting at them with a fly 2+.
And anti-fly 2 Helvrins, for example,
would be hitting, would be wounding my Lich Guard on 2s.
Yeah, I supplemented forwarded your message onto the Black Crow guys. And one of the other guys came back with, same situation with Abmech. That suddenly you can put a guy with the robots and it makes them infantry. So then any anti-infantry stuff batters the crap out of the robots that are normally strengths or toughness 9, 10, whatever, and you're wounding them on 2s.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that is because what Josh was saying about should you know that about all of your armies, there's no way on God's earth that any one of us are going to be able to know the key words for all the characters that could potentially be added to a unit.
Yeah.
Apparently we still know what the keywords is for our own armies. So
no, I just found out. I've been playing this one for about 20 years. Okay, Steve, let's get back to your list. It's Chaos Space Marines. It's possessed and chosen, charging at you like lunatics. There was a very good list on Bell of Lost Souls yesterday that had exactly the same, but they were 30 chosen.
They copied my list.
Well, they're not quite. They had 30 chosen in Rhinos, 2 lots of 5 possessed, 2 Forge Fiends, a couple of little somethings to do the missions.
Yeah, which to be fair, I could do that if I dropped other stuff out. But I like the Venom Crawlers. The fact, and I've got Marker Zench, so therefore I'm lethal hits. So any 6s or 5s because they're Marker Zench. If I dart pack them, I'm auto wounding. Yeah, Steve, I'd rather have those.
Steve, stop right there. If you say if you're dart packing, you're an idiot.
I'm dart packed.
Just dart packed until you're blue in the face.
I'm doing it every turn with everything.
So Matt, tell me about the hideous Eldari list that you're taking.
I'm sorry, I'm not sorry is the name of the list, and I'm not sorry about it, to be fair. I've been testing a few things lately. I try to play a little bit off what the typical is, as saying off air. I don't buy Finecast models, so everything I've got is the new kind of sculpts or the newer sculpts that Eldar have. So I've not got Warp Spiders, I've not got Swooping Hawks. I'd love them, I think they're great, but I don't have them, so I have to kind of make concessions here and there. So we start with the inevitable Warlord. He's the Warlord in every Eldar army. It's the Autarch Wayleaper. He's got the normal loadout, which is your Dragon Fusion Gun, your Starglaive. I put him with the Banshee Mask because I think Fight First is way better than 2 devastating wounds every now and again. So I don't know why everyone likes the Manda Blasters. Fight First on a lone op, I think, makes him more safe. And then he's got the Phoenix Gem, so he gets back up on a 2. I've got a Farseer, who's just bog standard on foot. And then as a little teaser for what's coming up later, I've got Spirit Seer with Fate's Messenger, because everybody takes one. And then I've got the Avatar of Cain and the Incarn, because I don't like to leave home without the Bash Brothers. So there they are. So we've got 2 units of 5 Rangers, so they're just going to be flitting around and scoring points. One thing that everyone forgets with Eldari is all Eldari pistols are assault weapons. So most of my army's got an assault weapon, so I can advance. And so even though they're not as fast as things like your typical things like Warp Spiders and stuff, they're still going to be moving pretty quickly if I advance them. So yeah, they're pretty good. So there's 2 units of them. I've got a unit of Shroud Runners. I love Shroud Runners. I think they're amazing. Yeah. I think when the inevitable nerf comes, the Shroud Runners will be quite popular. A War Walker on his own, with 2 Bright Lances. I want to take 3 War Walkers in every list, but this doesn't need them because, as I alluded to earlier, I've got 10 Wraithguard, which I've not
filth.
played with. Yeah, I've not played with them yet, so I'm actually going to be building them like tomorrow.
Yeah, to be fair, as I said, mate, if you want to borrow mine, then you're more than welcome.
Yeah, no, they'll be here tomorrow, so ready to go. And then finally, the most hated unit probably in the game at the moment. I've got 2 Night Spinners because they're amazing.
Yeah.
And I would pay 180 points if they didn't have a gun. So they are so good. The special rule for people who don't know is if they get a hit, which they will, it's -2 to your move characteristic, and everyone goes, "Oh, that sounds pretty good." Is it a -2 to your charge or your advance? It's no, you just can't advance. Oh, okay. So it's like very mean. I actually saw a video the other day on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and it was a story in 2 seconds, and it was a video of 2 Night Spinners, and then the camera pans across the table to the other deployment zone, and there was 5 Centurions in the opponent's deployment zone, and I was instantly like, right, cool, they're not moving, because they would have had a move characteristic of 2. So they're my board control. I know we talked about Necrons and warrior blobs and stuff like that. I'm not going to worry about killing chaff. I'm going to just tell it to not move. That's kind of my plan. So yeah, that's the list. Hopefully that I can take. There is a second list which is quite bike heavy, which is running Wind Riders and things like that, which I still think are really good, but they're a bit ungainly. So yeah, that's kind of the plan. And yeah, I'm just going to upset a few people, I suppose.
Yeah, us if you fight us.
Yeah, sorry.
Again.
So yeah, that's kind of it. It's not complicated. It's an Eldar list.
It's not complicated, but it's, you know, there's the obvious moves. There's the kill something in the back line, whack the Incarn over and do whatever he does. That's the obvious bit. But actually, you shouldn't put yourself down, because to play it properly takes quite a bit of skill, because there's very fragile units, and if you get it wrong, you can get hurt, especially with somebody with indirect fire. So you know, it's not as easy as all that. It's not an auto win anymore. And no. What armies would you be concerned about, Matt? If you were looking across the table and you saw their army, which ones would make you go, ooh?
I actually think the army that frightens me the most is actually Nids. Mm-hmm. Because if it's that Vanguard where they're just cool, everything's in front of you and it can advance and charge, I can't Night Spinner everything. So it's things like that. Orcs are tricky because again they want to advance and charge. They're probably in trucks. Although I've got a little bit of a plan for orcs, because luckily, you know, rangers and scouts, scout bikes, shroud runners, can block. They can play the midfield game. Yeah. So then I can Night Spinner the key units and then go, okay, cool, you've run into a unit of rangers. Thank you for killing 55 points. Here's 10 Wraithguard. There's a few armies that are a little bit nervy, but yeah, I'm not frightened of anything.
Okay, and what about Fate dice? Tell me what you think about Fate dice.
I think Fate dice are fine.
Right.
Oh, of course you do.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think Fate. I actually, joking aside, I do think Fate dice are not as bad as people think they are. To some degree, it is a very powerful mechanic. Anything where you can take manipulation of dice out of play is so strong, but I don't think it's the scary thing in the Eldar army as much as the reroll. I think the reroll for the hit and wound on every unit, every activation is actually more powerful. But especially now you could potentially, where they've clarified it and it's in the GW FAQ, which we're not using, but still that's how it's been being played anyway. Yeah. In that you can substitute a dice after a reroll. Okay. Because it just says you just substitute it before a roll. Well, a reroll is a roll, so it's I mean, that reroll is insane. It's so powerful.
Together is horrible.
It's the two, because you just go, like, if you get lucky. If I Overwatch, say for example, with a War Walker, and I go, well, one of them hits, and I'm going to roll one, and I've rolled a 6. Okay, or I've re-rolled it into a 6. Okay, I've got 2 bright lance shots going at your tank, and in Overwatch that are -3 d6 plus 2 damage. Like, okay, like and they're likely to wound most things. There's
Against
not a lot
my
of
Land
toughness
Raider,
to
yeah, thanks.
yes, yes, yeah. Steve's Land Raider met my fire prisms, unfortunately, in a game. It's. I do think fake dice. I mean, nobody complains about miracle dice. That's kind of my argument.
Oh, wait. Yes, they do. There was just recently, just about last weekend, one of the big 300-player tournaments in the States. Sisters won it, and they won it with a really hard run through playing Orcs, Chaos Space Marines, and 2 Eldari armies.
Yeah,
and
it's the one with Val and the Triumph, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was the one with all of the more miracle, lots of little MSU units. So there was more miracle dice you could shake a stick at, and they could do all kinds of shenanigans. And I think that for me, anything that allows you to change, the whole point of having dice is to introduce an element of risk to actions on the tabletop.
Agreed.
If you can manipulate that so your elements of risk aren't just mitigated but absolutely taken away, that kind of undermines the whole point of having them in the first place. And that's why I don't like. I
have a fix for it. I do have a fix for fake dice. Go back to what it was in 9th edition. So that was you rolled X amount of dice, and they depend on what you rolled on the dice, equaled a certain manipulation. So say, for example, you rolled a 3, it was an automatic 6 on a psychic test. So yes, it's always a 6, but you can only use it on a psychic test.
Got it.
You can only use. So I think they could go back to that and go, right, okay, 1 is a hit, 2 is a save, 3 is a wound, 4 is a battle shock test, 5 is, just do it that way and just go, cool. Yeah, you've got 12 dice, they're all automatic 6s, but your reliability's gone because I can plug them in whenever. That's the thing, is the fact that if I roll like 3 1s, I just go, well, cool, they're 3 6s because they're just the ones that my Farseer turns into a 6. Okay. So it's
that's another one. Once they've got them, why are they allowed to get extra ones every time?
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway, let's move on. On. So Matt, how many are you going to win? And then we'll move on to the last to Josh's list.
So I always aim for any tournament to go with a winning record. So if I don't have a winning record with Eldar, which I didn't at my last event, but I made some horrible mistakes in a third game. No, that wasn't you actually. That was the Curtain Games last one. I was 2-1 in the first day. 2-1 in the first day because I lost to the eventual winner with some horrible accursed cultist spam stupidity, which I couldn't get my head round, and played it like an idiot. But the next day, I played 2 games that I should have quite comfortably won, and I'd switched off. I'm starting to get a little bit of a bit of recognition down in the Southwest at events, which is nice. So I mean, I've finished quite high in a couple of big-ish events down here. So I've done top 20 at Beachhead when that was 220 players.
It's a big event.
Yeah, and I've done second to Manny at one of the big tournaments down here, which was pretty good. So yeah, it's getting there. But yeah, I deal
the one
with
where Manny beat Josh.
Yes.
Yeah, that's that one. Yeah. But
that was my podium.
Oh, I'd asked that.
You
that
didn't
was,
pay
sorry.
him.
Hang on. Don't everybody talk at the same time because it's already very loud. No one's going to be able to hear it. Okay, listen. Hang on. Yeah, let's just finish this off,
ideally,
Matt.
Yeah, I'm going to just say, I mean, dream would be a nice win, but 4-1 I'll take.
Josh told me off air when we were planning this that he still hadn't decided what list he was going to take. So during the course of the last half an hour, Josh, have you decided what you're taking?
Vaguely.
Well, can you tell us vaguely about what you're taking?
Okay, so the last couple of weeks, if you've been watching our battle reports on YouTube, I have been trying many things. I've tried my Grey Knights, my World Eaters, Knights, pretty much anything I can lay my hands on. I'm not really finding anything at the moment that I'm enjoying. I know World Eaters are in a really good place right now, and actually the games I've practiced with, they've actually played really well. But I just didn't enjoy the play style of them, which was odd for me because in 9th edition I was winning events with them, so that felt a bit odd. So I've kind of fallen into playing Chaos Knights, which was a little bit unexpected. Um, I've gone off meta. I'm not taking the 12 War Dog list. My plan is to take a Lancer, which will be equipped with the enhancement to give him -1 AP. And now he gets a 4-up invul at all times anyway, with a 3-up save. So you think, well, what's the point of taking the -1 AP? But the amount of combat armies that only have -1, it actually comes in quite clutch to still have the 3-up save.
Yep.
And the fact that he gets free tank shock, which is really nice. And he has an aura ability of 6
Hang on.
inches.
How does he get free tank shock?
It's built into his abilities.
So it's not one of those stratagems that you can have the 0 CP.
Yeah, it's effectively you get to use the stratagem for free, and then you can use it again if you wish to.
Right. So so it has to be a battle line stratagem, is it?
No, because it's specifically listed, so no.
Else, so it's a bit like mine with the Overwatch on the Hexmark Destroyer. It actually says Overwatch. So
that's
correct. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So I could so I can effectively use it on him, and then I can also use it on a War Dog, or whatever other unit I want to.
Got it.
But for him, he's at strength 20 on his top profile, so I'll get 22 dice hit, and I only need to hit on 5s to do a max of 6 mortal wounds. So I'll be normally doing 6 mortal wounds on the charge. And then he's got a strength 20 -4 flat 8 damage, or a strength 10 -3 flat 3 damage weapon. So either way, he's pretty nasty. He moves 14 inches. And my favourite part is the fact that his aura ability, any units within 6 inches, gets the assault ability. So all of a sudden, all my war dogs get assault, and I can advance them up the board, do actions, shoot, whatever I need to do. So actually, even though he's 465 points, he's a big sink of the army, but he's actually quite handy. And the fact that he's been sat on my shelf for the last 4 or 5 years, never been used, I thought, why not? A bit like yourself, Mike, with your monolith and stuff, I thought I'll just give him a go. Chuck him out there, see what happens at an event. And see how he gets on. I mean, he's going to have to be dealt with, otherwise he's just going to keep coming across the table at people, which means they're not shooting my war dogs, which is great. So my plan is to then I'm following him up with a stalker, which is the character war dog. He's then got the enhancement of Aura of Terror, so he has sticky objectives. So in my command phase, he makes an objective sticky, so effectively if I move off of it, I still control it, which is quite nice. I've then got 3 brigands, which are the really shooty ones, which have got the chain cannons and the the melters. But they hit on 2s, which is really nice. And then I've got 2. I've gone for huntsmen, which no one seems to be running, but they're really good anti-tank. So they're the ones that have got the melters, the thermal spears, and the chain swords effectively, but they get to re-roll their wound of 1 and re-roll the damage roll of 1 against vehicles and monsters. So again, really good into anti-armor. And then I've got 2 carnivores, which are the full combat ones. They've got claws and chainswords, and again they get to re-roll their charges. So that's a nice ability for them. I know that the meta list is running like 6 carnivores and brigands, and then a stalker. But 1, I don't have those models. 2, I don't want to run that list. So I'm just going to try something a bit different, a bit like Steve said. It's running something that's a little bit skew, something that people don't expect. And then to fill the rest of the list out, I've got 3 units of 3 Nurglings.
What a surprise!
Which are great for screening. Or they're great for scoring. Yeah, they're great for scoring homers or behind enemy lines or whatever I need them to do, really. I mean, they have deep strike, they have infiltrate. They're -1 to hit. That's against anything that doesn't have the vehicle or monster keyword. They're 4 wounds each for 35 points. Right? They're just brilliant. I've then also chucked in a blue scribes and a changeling, so 2 more characters. But again, both have lone operative. The changeling has stealth, so he's -1 to hit. And again, they can deep strike in. So if I want to, I can deep strike them, sick them on objectives or score actions or upset people shooting. I mean, the changeling, he rolls a d6 when he's targeted, and that can make a unit -1 to hit. Or if he rolls a 6, it means the unit can't shoot at all. And the blue scribes does mortal wounds. So yeah, it's fairly well rounded. I mean, I've still got 8 war dogs in that list. And obviously the Lancer and then the Demon stuff in there as well. So I feel like it's a list that can potentially do quite well. I mean, I've played a couple of games of it, and I've scored 90s in both those games. So the list has scoring ability, it has utility, there's actually enough speed in there as well. So I feel like it's a list that can do quite well. But the most important thing for me is I'm enjoying it. I've always loved my knights. Like we've spoke before, Mike, and with Steve. I love my Imperial Knights. I was going to go Imperial Knights. They're obviously in a bad place right now, but just the fact that I can send a Lancer through a wall for 1 CP and charge and do tank shock just is funny.
No, it's not funny. I fought, the last event I fought some Chaos Knights, and I fought one with 2 big knights, and I think he had 5 of the small ones. He had 3. That's right. He had 3 brigands and 2 hunters. Would that make sense? Yeah, huntsmen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the huntsmen. Yeah.
The huntsmen actually were quite good. I was quite surprised how good they turned out to be. So
I like them. No one else is running them, but I really like them.
Yeah, and that running through walls is worth its weight in gold, I have to say.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, if I was playing them and I had, well, if you're playing Imperial Knights now, you just throw some cheap chaff in the way and they can't go anywhere. And now they can't shoot through anything unless they've got a foot in it. That's good for them because you think it can't be seen, but they also can't shoot over it. So,
Well, it's also great for the Lancer because if he's not sat on the terrain, then he's hidden. So actually, if I want to, I can keep him reserved for a turn or 2, sat behind in my own deployment zone, off of the terrain. He's completely hidden, and with that 14-inch movement, as soon as anything touches the midboard, he's all over it. So he has play, without getting killed straight away.
Any questions for our friend Josh, Matt? Or do you know him so well?
No, I do have a question. Actually, he sort of answered it, but how are you feeling with the terrain? Because
that's why I'm taking the Chaos Knights over the Imperial Knights. Purely for the fact that I can either send 2 War Dogs through a piece of terrain for 1 CP, or I can take the Lancer through a piece of terrain for 1 CP. And I can just completely ignore it. Hence why I can deploy the Lancer in my own deployment zone behind the big L shape, not touching it, because obviously if I'm touching it, I can see in and they can see. So I can see out and they can see in.
Yeah.
But if I'm not touching it, I can sit there for as long as I want, bide my time, then spend a CP and just charge straight for it.
Yeah.
Ask me, Matt.
Well, yeah, go for it. What do you think of the terrain?
Well, I'll tell you what, all of the competition terrain is rubbish if you want to run monoliths, because there's never any routes to get out of it. And I couldn't. In the last 2 events I've been to, I took a monolith to the LGT in London, and I just couldn't move it. It just sort of wandered up to the first bit of terrain, shot anybody that got within 24 inches, and besides that, didn't do anything. So
didn't do anything else. Yeah, no. They're relatively dense in terms of ruin wise, but I actually think the glass hammer terrain's still missing a little bit of terrain. Yeah. I still don't think it's not like, I don't want to say it's not dense enough, because but I just think like there's something missing to it. I know they've got the little forests and stuff, but
I think it's the change to 10th. I think the change over to 10th is what the issue is. Like those woods made a difference in 9th, where now they really don't.
Well, hang on. Woods just give anybody a +1 save, don't they? They're not harder to hit or anything like that.
But in 9th edition, it was -1 to hit if you're in the terrain. So and I think that hurts more than just getting a colour save.
Yeah, it does. All right, so
but that's not the case.
So I'm driving all the way down to see you guys. So I'm expecting you.
Indeed. We're excited.
I'm excited, and I think listening to what you've all been saying, I've got the worst. I've got less of a chance of winning 3 than anybody else.
I don't think so. I like Necrons. I am getting my Necrons ready soon for when the new book comes. So
well, thank you, Matt. But mine's not really the competitive. I'm taking the Silent King because I like the model and I've got him, and you don't see him, and he's won the game for me on a number of occasions because people don't take him seriously. Here's an idea: Votan basically get armor of contempt anywhere they want it with it for a CP. Well, I've got an aura around the Silent King that means that nothing affects any of my statistics. So I can't be your night spinners don't work on me because they won't affect my speed or anything within 6 inches of him. So you need to watch out for that.
Yeah, but is he going to be there?
Not if the Incarn gets to him. No, he's going to be dead. Or your Wraith Guard. So either way, he's going to be dead. Yeah. So anyway, all right, everybody. Steve, you okay, mate? I thought you were
I'm surviving now. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Sorry about that.
Well, look, we need to draw a line under it. I'm going to be down there to see you in what is it? When do I have to get the list in?
17th.
17th.
Yeah, next
so
week.
Next Friday.
Week today.
Alrighty. All right. And Matt, I'm going to look forward to seeing you. Steve, Josh,
Yes,
can't wait
indeed.
to see you guys. And Steve, I'll talk about plans offline later on.
Yeah, it'd be great.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
Pleasure.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
If you've got this far, thank you very much for listening. Apologies for Josh, who sounded like he was in a cave. He may well have been. Who knows? I have no idea about his domestic arrangements, but I apologise for that. On the other hand, he was legible. You could hear him. So that was all good stuff. I will put a link in the introductions for a 40k Fireside for Vic VJ and Dave Gaylard's podcast. I'll also put a link there for the Black Crows YouTube channel, and they do some rather nice battle reports. They're getting much better now than they were, but everybody learns as they go along, and they're getting to a point where they're getting really quite good. Questions that have come to me during the course of listening. Steve, you're going to be taking a Chaos Space Marine army that runs across, advances and charges, and destroys the enemy in close combat. My question is, why aren't you taking World Eaters? I'm sure that they do exactly what you want them to do, and probably a bit better. There's probably a reason, but I don't know what it is. I also like the idea of having a discussion at some point is how much of our information should we share with our opponents? Obviously, we don't want to be that guy who comes across as someone who's hiding all of their abilities. But on the other hand, you don't really want, people. You expect people to know certain things about an army. But another podcast. Whatever the situation, if you've liked what you've heard, if you want to hear more, please tick the thumbs up box or subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or another podcast channel, please like it, please follow. And until we get back next week, where I will... Do you know what? I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to be doing next week, because the time when I'd usually be recording the podcast, I'll be driving 4.5 hours down to Plymouth. So there may be a very short podcast next week, or there may not even be one. And I will be doing a report on the outcome of Cross Swords at Plymouth the following week. And then you can know whether we all meet what we think we're going to do. I think I'm going to win 2. I might win 3. Steve thinks he'll win 3. Josh thinks he'll win 3. And we all think that Matt should win 4 and might even win 5. Until the next time, see you on the ice.